Good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda, they, them, and I should start by saying I'm on Bluesky with a username that I made back in 2009 that folks knew me by on Twitter. It's literaturegeek.bsky, which is the short form of bluesky.social. And all the links that I'm sharing today are going to be collected in a blog post. It's at the bottom of the slide. I'll repeat it at the end. So if things go by fast, don't feel like you have to grab the link or like, oh no, I can't find this now. It's tinyurl.com/intro-bluesky. So social media can help you build professional and social community, find jobs, learn from others, share your work, ask questions, and hear about new ideas and projects. After that implosion of multiple other social platforms that happened in the last couple of years, the Bluesky platform has become one of the best options, I think, to keep accessing those benefits. This webinar is going to be aimed at glam folks considering trying out Bluesky, or if you've dipped a toe in but not felt comfortable just yet. My background is in the digital humanities, or DH, and in glam, particularly libraries and archives. And if you hear me conflating the two, it's because I see a lot of overlaps in good things that can happen in both areas, such as community care, labor organizing, experimentation to find better and fair ways to do things that help more people, accessibility, a critical approach to technologies, and a commitment to unfettered public knowledge making and knowledge access. It's why my Bluesky Guides link is tinyurl.com/dhbluesky, but glam folks are actually one of the audiences it's specifically aimed at. In today's talk, I'll give some context and caveats for how I'm thinking about library work and social media, focused on a critical, non-neutral understanding of tech and a socially just approach to why we do library work. I'll talk a bit about why I use social media and how to think about whether and how that might be right for you. I'll give a brief overview of what Bluesky is and basic steps to getting started with it, though I promise I'm not going to rehash. I have a very extensive guide to understanding Bluesky, since you are welcome to refer to that later at any point if you wish to know kind of more specifics or what's a setting that'll do this thing for me. And finally, I'm going to talk a bit about safety and wellness when using social media, and we should have lots of time for questions at the end. I wanted to start off with some personal framings or definitions, and I promise I'm not going to quote Merriam-Webster at y'all. Rather, I think it's useful when thinking through how we try to use social media in healthy and just ways as library workers to connect that back to how we understand kind of the point of library knowledge work for ourselves. First, I use the terms scholarship and scholars and librarianship and library workers pretty interchangeably. Because I see scholarship as about a commitment to creativity, information, and knowledge making and sharing. And that's obviously work that anyone can and does do, and that folks in libraries and other glam locations, academia, teaching, and learning, and thinking that happens beyond those places routinely do and are all equal participants in. And to me, scholarship is doing learning work in many forms, including like creating resource guides, coding, archival description, collecting oral histories, teaching and workshop design, library outreach, and connecting that work to a community so that the practice matters because it reaches others who can learn from and critique and build on it. And to achieve that, social justice work, I feel, is inherently part of scholarship. We need to advocate for the thriving, just, caring conditions that let everyone choose to take part in that learning and knowledge making and sharing. I know others use those words differently, for example, kind of like professional versus scholarly, or scholarly to just mean university or just faculty. So I wanted to make sure you knew if I use the word scholarship or scholar today, I'm referring to library work and library workers as well. Secondly, critical approaches to tech are central to my work as best as I'm able to make them be. I'm enthusiastic about social media because it's been a lovely tool for me to meet collaborators, models, co-conspirators, to build and participate in good communities, to share my work and get feedback and encouragement on it, and to learn, including from folks living in different contexts from mine, and become a better person for it. But all tech is political and not neutral. Just as we know good that social media has made possible, such as giving additional reach to the Black Lives Matter movement, especially in the teens, and helping coordinate large just uprisings like the Arab Spring, we know it's been deliberately used to spread lies or disinformation, misinformation, such as Facebook's contribution to the genocide in Myanmar and the platforming of fascists and the silencing of just voices. We also know that social media, even before Musk bought Twitter, was an unsafe place for many folks, particularly folks who are people of color, LGBTQIA+, and are women. that there are accessibility barriers to using social media, such as lack of descriptive alternative text on images for folks with no or low vision, and the cost of internet and computers. We know we have colleagues and neighbors who have never been able to use social media for the benefits I've described and will be talking about, and that number has been only going up recently. If you haven't been using Twitter, just so you know, it went from kind of generally worse when Elon Musk first purchased it to actively platforming literal Nazis, amplifying transphobia and racism, banning and reducing amplification of just info. So also when I say tweet today, I mean Bluesky or other social media posts and not Twitter tweets. There has been an attempt to make a different term stick, skeets for Bluesky and toots for Mastodon, and those haven't really caught on for maybe reasons you can tell. If you've ever been like subtweeted on Mastodon, it's just like, it doesn't have the right affect for what's going on. I'm going to talk a bit about strategies for this latter ill, this harassment and abuse on social media. But I also wanted to mention the former larger issue of social media powering not just good, but also evil. To learn more in that area, one excellent resource is Burgess Jules, Makiba Foster, and teams archiving the Black Web Project, which is at archivingtheblackweb.org. It takes a GLAM approach to social media via ethical archiving, and through its work around Black life and history, it also explores the potentials of social media for communicating, remembering, educating, and connecting. A framing that I learned from Moya Bailey, who applied it to the question, am I a digital humanist? Is my work digital humanities? Is that your answer to these questions doesn't need to be the dictionaries. Your answer about Bluesky, do I use social media or not, can be strategic. What does it do for me? What do I gain? What do I lose if I use Bluesky? If I use it professionally, or only for personal things, or for a mix of the two? Especially with that fragmentation of social media platforms post-Twitter, no one must be on Bluesky, or on Twitter, or some other platform to learn things important to your personal or professional knowledge, or to have your work known. It's just one path, and you might decide it isn't the one for you. I'll share some resources about other options than Bluesky when we get to the safety and wellness part of this talk. Some benefits of Bluesky or other social media with similar features can include, beyond the usual, learn about trends, tools, projects, skills, jobs, take part in conversations, et cetera, a number of things. Although I do think being able to get real-time feedback and work you're in the middle of and help finding related readings or tools is huge. Just assuming that those things that I named are the most usual touted benefits that we're kind of vaguely aware of, even if we've experienced them less than we'd like to. One thing I really like about being super on Bluesky is learning who in your community is a generous collaborator, citation giver, appreciator, amplifier. Are people sharing other people's work? Are they saying who this work is by? Those kinds of things that give you a sense of these people and how they do work with others. It's obviously a place to back channel, for example, during conferences, and a whisper network. For example, should you take that job or not? It can be relief, encouragement, recognition for kinds of work that your institution might not value, but other people doing the same work elsewhere will be like, oh, I know that was huge, that's stressful, that's big. Having that kind of support can be really life-giving. Also can help establish your name tied to your work, to get thought of for invites and opportunities, to be known as an expert, to be cited. And one thing that I don't hear shared as much is that it can be protection, marking your work as established at a previous date. If someone later is quoting it without citing you, reusing it, the more people know that it's your work is a way to protect people sharing that that work was done by you. Bluesky is a social media platform, just to give a really quick definition, that lets you publish 300 character or fewer text posts with links, photos, GIFs, and video. If you've used Twitter, it will feel very similar, the most similar out of all the tools that I've seen. And while I don't claim to fully understand the technical structure behind Bluesky, my understanding is that Twitter relies wholly on proprietary software and stores your content on its own servers. Bluesky uses its own implementation of a broader technology not owned by Bluesky, the decentralized APIs as well. This gives users more control over their data and the ability to move between different social media platforms without losing data, including posts and that follower and following network information. 4 things that I really especially like about Bluesky. First is interaction control. When you're posting or at any point after you've made a post in the future, you can change interaction settings on it really granularly. including detaching your post from quotes of it if somebody has, kind of an annotation on top and then the picture of your post at the bottom. You can hide replies that people make to your post if you don't want other users seeing them in your reply section. You can say, no one can interact with this post anymore. I want people to be able to read it, but not reply at all, to not quote tweet it. And you can really pick specific things like only people I follow can reply at this point. Only people on this particular list I made can interact. 2, community structures. There are some really easy ways to gather community. For example, there are library feeds that you join, and you can use a Bookstack icon to post to. We'll be talking a bit about these feeds and starter packs that are part of Bluesky that really let you do a bit more than Twitter was able to in terms of gathering people and finding similar posts. I really love the block culture etiquette on Bluesky. It's very different than I've experienced elsewhere. At least where I've been on Bluesky, the popular etiquette encourages people to block other users for really any reason. It's not necessarily a judgment on you're a bad person or I don't like your posts. Maybe you're unsure if somebody's a spammer. Maybe they replied to a post of yours and it made you a little less happy. Maybe they engage in drama that you don't want to see. You don't need to give people a chance. Just preserve your wellness, block, and move on. This is something that a lot of people are talking about doing, encouraging others to do. And I really like it. Remember that in addition to real world hateful or just annoying people, there are bots and also deliberate campaigns to troll or confuse people. It really makes for a better experience if you can just say, we are adults and smart people. We can recognize the difference between interesting challenges to the way that we've been thinking and new information and people that are just making your day worse to see them. You don't have to see those people. You don't have to be, I don't know, we're individuals. We don't need to be organizations with democratic access to everyone. We have limited, bandwidth. So I really like this about Bluesky. And lastly, related to that, there are built-in block and mute lists and labeler features in Bluesky that really help you avoid bad or annoying or irrelevant accounts at scale without a lot of work on your own part. I'm going to break Bluesky into 4 areas: creating your account if you don't have one, some tips on an effective bio, the profile page for your account, ways to set up your reading experience to have the content and interface that you want, and how to connect with other folks via posting. I'm going to leave a lot out here because I don't want to overwhelm, and because I think it's more useful for me to talk about how you can find and build community and leave the nitty-gritty of various settings to documentation. You can check out my extensive guide at tinyurl.com/dhbluesky if you want to learn more about anything, such as what all the moderation options are. And I could easily put a your mileage or preference may vary caveat in front of most of what I'm about to say. So I'll just say up front, I agree you can entirely ignore me for any of these and do what you want with your Bluesky account. For example, when I make suggestions on how to create a bio profile that can help folks find and follow you, I'm thinking of things I've seen work for the outcomes that I find useful, but you might not share those, or you might achieve the same thing in different ways I haven't thought of. So please don't think of any of this as a prescriptive, you must do this way advice. And it's also not deeply researched analysis of what tends to make other folks decide whether to follow or interact with you. And please also know my content is someone who is very online and does a lot of sharing of work, including failures and personal life and opinions via social media. That doesn't need to be how you do it. Some people have fully this is my professional profile. None of my life personally is shared. Some people do a mix. Some people have only kind of personal fun accounts. So to join, Bluesky, again, bsky.social is where you go and you click that login or sign up button. And that's it. There used to be a waitlist invite situation, but that's been gone for a long time. I will say, even if you don't want to read or talk on Bluesky ever, you go away today and you're like, nope, this is not for me. It's never going to be for me. You might consider creating an account there and putting at least a link to info about you that's elsewhere on the web, online, in your bio on Bluesky. Doing this means that someone else can't use a username that's associated with you elsewhere and use it for things that you wouldn't want others to wonder whether they're you or not. If there's any chance you want Bluesky use in the future, you'll have this before others can take the username that you want. And some folks might have already followed you in the meantime, being like, oh, I know this person. If they ever start posting, I want to listen to them. And also, if people want to cite or talk about you or your work on Bluesky, for example, if you go to a conference, projects you work on, something cool that you said in a meeting, They can include your username, which automatically links them back to your bio page. If you've got text there making it clear that, yes, this is actually you, people may follow your account there. And if you've got a link or a pinned introduction post linking to your work or info elsewhere on the web off Bluesky, it's just another way people may end up visiting those. The next step is filling out your profile info or bio. You can add an avatar and some kind of text really as soon as possible when you join, so you look like a real person to others, I'd recommend. And up on the screen is the example of my bio profile page. Again, y'all definitely please do you, what works well for you. But know that when people see accounts listed on the site, usually just the first bit of the full bio text shows. This second screenshot that I have up on the screen, searching for my username, you can see that there's only kind of the first 3 lines, so that other information below it is hidden. So you might want those first words to be the things likeliest to let people know who you are, or what you're likely to tweet about, for the kind of audience you're hoping finds or follows you. For example, if you want to find out about potential jobs or research opportunities, you might want to put your job title, institution, and some keywords related to your skills and areas of work early in your bio. Including broader keywords makes your bio more likely to turn up when people do general searches like library or librarian, and more specific info keywords so people know what you do or find you when they're doing more niche searches like zines. Other things that people do with their bios that I don't personally recommend strongly, but they're also perfectly good for those folks' goals. Having more narrative bios like, I'm a lifelong learner, and if I go missing, my TBR or to be read pile probably finally collapsed on me. That kind of bio text is less useful if you are using Bluesky professionally. People kind of don't know, what are you doing? What have you done? Why would I want to follow you? Other than, cool things like, I love learning, I read a lot, I have so many books. So up to you whether that matches what you want or not. Some people use some of the somewhat limited text space for your bio to note that bio writing is hard. Again, you do you, but I'm always trying to fit stuff into that space. So that's not something I use it for personally. I'd also say noting that your account is not opinions of your employer, unless your account has a handle that could reasonably be construed to be an institutional work account. For example, if you have the username like Georgetown Science Librarian.bisky.social, if that's also your job. But again, your mileage may vary. You can definitely do this and should do this if it helps you feel more safe or more comfortable writing what you want to write, or if your employer pressures people to. You can include pronouns in your bio, and these do count towards the character limit. Or you can display, put them in your display name, which is editable while your username stays the same. Labelers are Bluesky tools for adding small info tags to your profile and posts visible to other users who also subscribe to that same labeler. And they look like this one label on my current bio page. You can see I've used this pronouns labeler that lets me actually put my pronouns there. And then it's visible on my posts as well. You can also do things like the screenshot in the lower left is from when I had more labels on my account. There's a labeler. I think it's a STEM labeler where you're able to say, here are the areas or fields that I work in. And then other people can see that and be like, oh, they know about data science. Maybe I want to follow them. Or they know about data science. Maybe I shouldn't assume that their question needs like a beginner's answer. There's some really interesting uses of Bluesky labelers currently. This wasn't a thing that was available on Twitter. It's something that people can make custom labelers themselves. You can use them to find folks and understand who they are, like that displaying your pronouns or your expertise fields. Some people use them to act like old Twitter bots, where you can say, or tell or label me what kind of, like X fantasy character I am. People also use it for user experience to help people see this account is something I do or don't want to follow. For example, label accounts that use GIFs a lot for people that are avoiding motion, avoiding posters who don't use alt text on their images, and for moderation. For example, there's like a crypto spammer label tag that people put on accounts that are always like, buy this crypto, it'll be good. And again, it just helps you notice that and be like, maybe I don't need to interact with this person in good faith because they're not interacting in good faith with me, or I'm not interested in their content. To just lurk and read on Bluesky, you can definitely do that and nothing else. But there are some setting changes and particular places to read that will vastly improve your experience. I've listed these at tinyurl.com/basic-bisky-settings. And that's part of my larger guide, just links to a place within it. You can set things like a reminder to always require putting alt text on your images. Decide what kinds of posts show on your homepage, choose better views of threaded posts, and make sure you're not missing posts in multiple languages. And to find better content, you'll want to follow just tons of user accounts, especially early on. That's really how you get the best reading experience. There's a Discover feed, which is an algorithm that will expose you to new folks and posts that are similar to the communities that you already interact with on Bluesky. And I'd also say to pin the Mentions feed, which gives you an easy way to see people that are pinging you directly to say something or reply to one of your posts. There's a Notifications tab that also includes these, but that Notifications also includes other things like somebody has followed you, somebody has RT'd you, which can mean you might miss somebody mentioning you directly or asking you a question. I'd also suggest just if you like an account, check who that account follows. For example, this lovely alt NEH account, look at who's following it or who they're following to see people that are similar or recommended. There's also a directory that is full of feeds, labelers, lists, starter packs, apps, and more that you can search at blueskydirectory.com. You can look at specific areas of fandoms, library work areas, just kind of everything, and be able to pull up what is out there that I might like. Kind of similar, but more curated. I have a table of starter packs, lists, and feeds that are of interest to glam folks, DH folks, really researchy folks, including things about glam, activism, humanities, critical tech, trans rights and history, and making and crafting. And that's at tinyurl.com/starter-packs. I've shared some initial themed groups of user accounts to follow for library workers, including Black, Indigenous, and/or people of color in libraries and archives, and groups doing critical cataloging and other critical library work. I will reshare this link at the end that has all of these resources I mentioned, so don't worry about grabbing all these links before I change slides. I really just wanted you to know these were coming and that these were out there as places to kind of start. If you do want to open those links now, though, you can go to tinyurl.com/intro-bluesky. The third thing that you want to do is to write a pinned introduction post so that folks can find you and can know why they might want to follow you and what kinds of things you might post about. It's like your bio, but you can change it more easily. The space is different. You can use images. Here's mine up on the screen. And once you make one, don't forget to click that ... icon at the bottom right after you post the post and choose the option to pin it to your profile. These are also nice because unlike your bio, people can reply to and retweet these. So especially if you're new and you're like, I just joined Bluesky, you can be like, here's what I like, here's what I might post about. And people that know you or find those things interesting might share that. And then you get more people following you and interacting you and seeing that you've actually joined Bluesky. Bluesky uses a couple of ways to help you find and follow clusters of similar accounts, starter packs, feeds, lists, and labelers. You can create these yourselves. Do note that they're publicly viewable, so if you have a list of like my worst glam enemies, those people could find that. So you might want to title it something different. I'll also say no one is 100% clear on or uses these terms correctly all the time. You do not need to remember what they are or the difference among them. I'll tell you a bit about how they're different, but they're really just groupings with names that are kind of make it a little difficult to remember which is which. So lists are collections of people, user accounts. So you can read posts from those people. They can also be used to mute or block a set of accounts. Starter packs are like lists, except you can press a button to follow everyone in the pack instead of following one by one, this account, this account, this account. So people will do themed things like I shared. Here's a bunch of folks that do critical cataloging, for example. Here's a bunch of letterpress printers. Feeds are like lists plus in some ways, except they're often more centered around reading posts than following people. You can make a feed that's just posts from a set of users, like a list, but feeds also let you collect posts from other factors, such as hashtags, and limit or filter what's included by a variety of factors like I only want to include or disinclude posts that have replies or RTs, posts that have media attached, posts that use some specific word, posts that meet a threshold of X likes. I don't want to see it if it has less than 20 likes, for example. Posts that use Y emoji. And I wanted to share a couple writing ideas because one of the ways that I got myself to get back into enjoying social media after Twitter imploded and I was off it for a while and I was really missing community was to have kind of some structure about this is the kind of thing I could write today. And I'm going to try to write, once a week, once every couple days. Tuesdays are the day that I share X type of thing. This can help you get back into practice, get some comfort, hopefully get some good experiences. One of the things that I do, and I've got some examples of these up on the screen, is just share the interesting kinds of work that you might have in the week ahead. And I try to remember that, it seems very boring to me that I've got meetings and email mostly in my job, but it's interesting to people that, are studying, students looking to see what jobs are out there, what do people actually do in them, to folks outside of libraries that are just like, what is that job? What is that work actually like? Maybe you have something that's actually cool. Like, I'm so excited I get to work with this community member this week. Another thing you can do, obviously, is share links to things that you read online or off. You can ask questions for your field. How do you handle X? Can you recommend readings about Y? What's your favorite tool to Z? You can share your in-progress work or presentations, talks, handouts. You can live tweet reading an article or attending a talk or event. And also amplifying others. As I mentioned, one of the things I like to see in my community is who is doing this for other people's work, especially looking for work that's been less shared, people that are earlier in their careers, and amplifying that, saying, here's something cool about this. There's this thing that I learned from it that I didn't know. This makes me think about trying Y. That can be something where if you're still kind of uncomfortable, what do I post about my own work or just about my own day, reading other people's posts and kind of adding what it gave to you can be something more comfortable. When using images or videos, please always include good alt text. And what good alt text is not so much what do you see exactly as what is the impression that you take and the relevant info that you get from that image. There's a setting that you can turn on to remind or require you to add this before posting. Alt text really helps folks using screen readers with low or no vision, folks doing audio reading while commuting or washing their dishes, folks trying to understand what's shown in a photo. Why am I looking at this? There's a joke, but I don't get it. Am I not seeing something? And more. And one of the things about Bluesky I've noticed is that you will get people asking or yelling at you to include alt text if you don't, which can be a good reminder to make it a practice because it's something that's really good for community users. On the example on the screen, you can see that I have a photo of my lovely dog, Maple. Instead of having just kind of a very pure objective description about, like measurements and location and like, oh, there's a whiteboard in the background and these different things that do describe the photo, I tried to talk more about what was the impression that you get from it that you're missing if you can't see it well. So focusing on like that snoot is pushed right up to the camera lens. There's a little blur on it because she's sniffing, and the foreshortening really makes the entire thing look like a really long nose. This next section on safety and wellness and community has the caveat that I'm speaking from the privilege and safeties of a white person, and as someone usually read as cis, although I am trans, of someone with a stable job, among other things that determine if I can use social media and how I can use it, in terms of keeping my job, likeliness of harassment, microaggressions, stalking, stolen work. As I mentioned earlier, being on social media isn't an option for everyone, and being on social media identifiable as yourself isn't either. And that is an option, is to be anonymous in sharing things, looking at who you're connected with. Does that give away who you are? To what extent do you want to be careful about that? To what extent does it let you write and interact in the way that you want to? There's 4 quick things I'd recommend that everybody do on Bluesky, although there's a ton of other guides and things I'll be sharing in a minute, just in terms of avoiding harassment, in terms of security. For settings and practices that you can set up immediately, there's a moderation setting on my moderation section on my Bluesky guide. And that's tinyurl.com/bluesky-mod, just to jump to right there. Don't forget about that block for whatever reason etiquette. You really don't owe anyone your peace of mind, and I encourage you to block anyone who replies, maybe just their posts, they're not even replying to you, or their bio gives you kind of off vibes. There's so many people on Bluesky, and you don't have to give all of them your time, and stress levels being what they are. Just really encourage you to feel comfortable doing that. It's not unfair. It's not being mean. It's just a good practice, I think. I'd also really suggest you follow listifications.app. It's a user account, but it's also an app. And what it does is it direct messages you whenever somebody has added you to a list, a feed, a starter pack, or blocked you. Since lists and packs have been used to coordinate harassing people, it's useful to be able to check whether you're listed on one so that you can block the list maker if the name seems kind of sketchy. Again, if it's like my worst glam enemies, you can be like, uh-oh, like maybe I want to block this person so that they're not using this to tell people to all go harass me or things like that. And sorry to give a kind of funny example of something that's actually very serious. Another thing that you can do is periodically bulk delete old posts, likes, and reposts. Especially for likes and reposts. These are things that you're probably not going to use again unless you're using them to bookmark things. They kind of have a purpose in the moment and then aren't so useful anymore. But people can always, trawl past posts that no one reads anymore to find something to be angry about or misquote. The tool at bisky.jazco.dev/cleanup will help you do this. You can say posts over X days old, posts that have media or don't have media, a number of different kind of filters of things. And there are various tools to archive your posts first if you do want to keep a personal private version of them, but also kind of get them off the web. I know some things about online safety and surveillance are kind of common knowledge because they're not just about Bluesky or just about social media. So I do want to talk about three things that are kind of not necessarily new, but have increased weight in the last couple months or years. The first one is book and lesson challenges in libraries and education. We know there are more people looking to identify workers who might advocate against censorship and fascism, or to support queer students and community members. We must do these things, and modeling them and encouraging them in others via social media is great. But if you're in a precarious role or identity yourself, it's also okay to consider what good you can do outside social media that might make you less liable for harassment or complaints to employers. And conversely, if you have a stable job like mine, if you don't have a lot of other stress in your life, if you have various privileges, trying to do more of that work of sharing tools, of sharing examples, of encouraging people can be something that you can use that privilege for. Another thing is that the US government is now publicly, formally saying we are reviewing social media accounts, both for international scholars here on visas and for travelers crossing the border into the US. So that's another thing to think about. And what do you want to put online? Once you tweet something, there are services that make copies. Even if you delete a post, it might still be somewhere in some database. So that's something to think about. And finally, if you're attending protests or other advocacy events, considering what and whether tweeting about it is safe, both for you and also for others. For example, you might wait to tweet until after something has happened to limit bad actors from reading that and showing up. You might not tweet any photos showing other people, especially faces, but also think about like any identifiable clothing, hair, tattoos, posters. You never know if somebody has a job where if they're seen to be in a photo, even if they weren't actually attending a protest and they just happened to be walking by, they could lose it. Removing metadata from photos before sharing them, especially like the exact location and time they were taken at. If the location is sensitive, I've read that tools are actually pretty good now at IDing a location from most outside photos, and not just ones showing street signs or major buildings, but basically just like the grass and the trees and lots of smaller things that computer vision is apparently now pretty good at. So I do try to attend to what's visible in photos that I share, including through Windows. I also wanted to share some safety and surveillance understanding and proactive planning reading resources. There are a variety of free zines out there. There's digital defense guides, including a Bluesky specific one. And the Library Freedom Project's excellent array of resources includes emergency response if you're experiencing doxing or harassment, and how to talk to employers about social media abuse, and how to get folks on board proactively protecting libraries and library workers against threats, including via social media. And again, I'm going to share a link to all of these at the end so you can check them out. And some of them are zines, so you can print them off and share them with other people for free too. In terms of wellness, as a corollary to proactive blocking, proactively looking for the people who give you the experience that makes social media use most sustainable for you right now is something I really recommend. Maybe that's folks who give measured analysis of news. And I want to say I do not mean ignoring or downplaying or using passive voice around the blatant violence and fascism that is happening right now. I mean clearly communicating when something has happened versus might be expected to happen, talking about actual threat or risk levels. For news related to trans folks, for example, erinninthemorning.com is a great example of this. You could create lists that separate a small group of friends from news sources and limit reading the news sources to specific times, with specific practices planned to help you de-stress afterward. You can make sure you're following folks who are actively working to build a better world and advising on actions you can take to be part of that. You can find folks sharing funny stuff and pet photos, poetry, or whatever reminds you of the good things in the world that we won't let them take away our enjoyment of. So one example of an online community that I'm part of and that I love and have paid a lot of attention to, how did we come to get to this place of having this really strong, lovely, supportive thing that is really good for my life, and I think for a number of other people, is the DH Makes community. So again, DH is digital humanities, but this actually was started by some DH/glam folks and is not really specific to DH. Definitely is open to anyone. If you like crafting, art, or makerspace work, I really highly recommend checking out this hashtag DHMakes and seeing what the associated community is about. There's a brief explainer of what it is and how to participate at tinyurl.com/whatisdhmakes, all one word. But basically, it's folks who do glam, digital humanities, teaching, researchy kinds of work, who also do craft or making work, not necessarily for part of their jobs, and who share that work, including first attempts, failures, and progress projects. It's a very friendly space, and you can even follow a feed that's just the posts that have craft photos attached to them for just seeing some inspiring and cool timeline cleansing. Well, I did want to say that last slide is some pages from a zine that came out of something related to this hashtag. We have a series of methods talks where somebody talks for 30 minutes about here's the way that I do crafting. And we've had, like tatting, zine making, English paper piecing, quilting. Why might you be interested? Why do I think it's cool? And then we turn it into a zine so that people that didn't attend can read about it. And so people that did attend and want to get started have kind of a cheat sheet. But we include at the end this encouragement to people to, here's how you get involved. Please do. You don't have to think of yourself as an artist. You don't have to think of yourself as a DH or a glam person necessarily. And here on the screen is an example from the DH Makes feed on Bluesky. On the left, just the last 2.5 posts from when I was taking screenshots a day or two ago. In the center of this gallery of photos is just from posts in the past week that use the DH Makes hashtag. And this actually is missing a lot of things. These are posts where people directly shared what they were doing and had the hashtag. But a lot of folks will also see, oh, somebody shared this cool work they're doing without the hashtag, and they'll do a quote tweet to add the hashtag. And actually, this gallery didn't pull those in. So it's missing a lot of things. And as you can see, there's already a bunch of stuff. There's embroidery, book art made from an actual accordion. A lot of the embroidery and textile work people do is actually data visualization at the same time, which is really cool. Sculpture, letterpress, button making. So some really cool stuff. Part of what I really like about this community is part of the culture has just kind of happened to be replying to posts with encouragement, admiration, what people like about what you made, and questions about the craft method. I also really like that it's a cross-method community, kind of like a digital humanities. So one of the joys of it is that you get to talk about your method to folks who don't do it. I don't do embroidery. I love seeing these posts. I don't do quilting, these other things. At the same time, people that don't do letterpress have questions for me when I'm sharing what I'm doing with that. So you get to talk to folks about it. It's a way to kind of start to have conversations, answer questions, and it's really lovely. If you look at that post that I linked, I think that's the tinyurl.com/dhmakes. In addition to just how to take part in this community and the zines and the events that I mentioned, we've had multiple conference workshops. We've published, I think, at least 2 peer-reviewed articles. There's been a special issue of a journal. There was a collaborative craft project. Actually, I think that's on the last slide. This skeleton down in the right corner wearing this vest with things on it was something community members made. We sent in little pieces of things from all over the country and beyond. There's some felting. There's a tiny data quilt. a bunch of different pieces and made it into this vest that had all these different pieces of art. So I won't overtalk to you all about crafting and making because I love that, but I know it's not social media. But I wanted to give you a sense of here's something happening on Bluesky that you can take part in, or think about it as an example of if I want to make a community or make an existing community better, what kind of interactions would I do? What would I need to do to support this? Another example of community work is the 2024 Social Media Working Group of the Association for Computers and the Humanities, or ACH. And that's the US-based international membership digital humanities organization. I'll share these links again in my link roundup, but they're the materials from planning how to explore alternatives to Twitter for our DH community, especially the subset involved in the ACH. The working group consisted of me, Quinn Dombrowski, Brandon Walsh, Jose Eduardo Gonzalez, and James Cummings. And we looked at both Mastodon and Bluesky over the course of a year, experimented with both, and brainstormed some strategies. The main ones were aimed at how do we help people reconnect, find each other, feel comfortable moving to a new platform, start to build up a feeling of doing things together online, kind of like what the DH Makes community does. The main ones that we found, the main strategies that we found were a series of recurring hashtags that were prompting different ways of making conversations or answering questions or sharing work. But the only one that really took off was recommitting to kind of what was at the time a smaller hashtag, that DH Makes one that I just shared about. We did find that the commitment through this working group about how often we contributed to that hashtag's use likely made a difference in its wider adoption and effort level in keeping that community going today. It just kind of goes on its own now. People find it. We have people all the time saying, what is DH Makes? I've seen this. We've got a post we can point them to. There doesn't feel like there needs to be kind of a regular structured effort to make it go now. There's just kind of a network of people, and Bluesky is one of the ways that it keeps going. So despite my talking about Bluesky today, if you don't like Bluesky after trying it, or you just know that the format isn't right for you, there are other options that you can use instead or in addition, including Mastodon, Slack, and Zine's community. I've shared these in my links post, but these include things like Knowledge Commons and its Mastodon instance. The Digital Humanities Slack is tinyurl.com/dh Slack to join, and it's open to everyone. You don't need any DH expertise to join it. DH Curiosity is useful because it's about DH, but there's a bunch of channels. There's a library-specific channel. There's an announcement channel with jobs and opportunities, things about specific methods that you might be interested in. And I also shared some resources for zines, just in terms of asynchronous community that can sometimes be shared online or in person. And again, both my list of starter packs that you might be interested in that you can follow to kind of jumpstart having a lot of interesting content on your Bluesky, and my general Bluesky guide, which is just I need help moderating or finding things or any part of using Bluesky. I just kind of tried to make a friendly reference, example apps, things that you can use to get more comfortable with it. And if you're on or join Bluesky, you're very welcome to message me. Again, I'm at literaturegeek.bisky.social, so I know and can follow you because I would love to do that. And really do be in touch if you have questions about Bluesky or you're on it or get on it. It'll be lovely to see you there. And have a good day.